This last panel is Smart Water, Smart Cities, Managing Municipal Resources. So it's a panel focused on municipalities. I do want to do a plug really quick that this panel was created out of someone's recommendation from the flyers at the back of your seminar booklet this year. So please, if you have ideas for next year, we do read them and we do use them. Without further ado, though, the moderator for this panel is Dimick, who is a water resource engineer with SGM, and I will allow him to introduce himself further.
Marshall, if you want to go ahead and come up as well. Well, good afternoon for you baseball fans. This is the ninth inning stretch. We're almost there. Thanks for hanging in. Before I begin, can we get a big round of applause for Mo and Elaine and Steve for putting on this conference? And thank you all to the presenters for making a really valuable day. And thank you for the staff here at the Sky Ute Casino for helping all the logistics come together. I'm a senior engineer at SGM. We're a West Slope-based engineering firm, founded in Glenwood Springs, but we have offices, Salida, Durango, that's where I'm located, Gunnison, Grand Junction. We're a multidisciplinary engineering, surveying, and consulting firm. And one of the joys of moving here a little over 8 years ago was getting to live in small communities that we serve. And it's fun driving around and seeing the projects you've been a part of, and we enjoy that. Before I moved to Colorado, I lived in the Denver metropolitan area, and for 12 years I served a number of municipal clients. And one of the things that impressed me most is all of the things that nobody notices to deliver a resource that everyone needs. And despite that exterior calmness that these municipalities show, really there's problems lurking underneath. And sometimes those problems look like water supply. Could be a drought, could be a flood, declining aquifer, could be water quality issues, legal availability. Sometimes it's aging infrastructure, funding problems, permitting timelines, all of these things. And what I've also learned is that while this is just scratching the surface, these municipalities never stop learning, they never stop planning, they never stop preparing for the unknown and the challenges ahead. As a kid, my dad would always tell me, Jordan, you don't have a problem, you've got an opportunity. And to be honest, I hated hearing that time and time again. But it turns out, in my life, I've learned he's right. If I take my problems and turn them into opportunities, things happen for the positive. So today we've got a great panel of speakers. They're going to share some of the opportunities they've gotten to go through. And our first speaker is going to be Marty Poole. He is a sustainability manager, City of Durango. Following him will be Justin Ramsey, the district engineer and manager for the Pagosa Area Water and Sanitation District. Brian Peckins is the public works director, City of Cortez. And Marshall Brown is the general manager for Aurora Water. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Should I stand up there while I'm doing it?
Sure.
All right, sounds good.
Broke the clicker.
There it is. Okay. Thank you for having me, everyone. Watching all today's presentations, I really think it's how fascinating it is when we think about, the entire Colorado River Basin, and then we keep going down and down and down the list and the hierarchy of users. And from a municipal perspective and for the city of Durango, kind of thinking regionally, we're almost just one user, right? We're one data point when you're thinking in these big geographic and statewide terms, but my work is very much once Durango as a municipality, as a municipal water utility is using that water, treating that water and delivering it to its customers, how is our community, how are our residents and businesses using that water, and what can that data show us? So it's just really interesting to think of the scope and scale of all the discussions we're having here. So for those of you that don't know, Who here is from kind of around the Durango area would be, okay, cool. So you'll find this interesting. Maybe, yeah, the folks from New Mexico. This is specific data to Durango, but I think communities all throughout the West Slope and the Colorado River Basin probably look something similar with their own challenges. So Durango is very unique. We get our primary water source from the Florida River, actually, and through a pipeline to our treatment plant. When that's higher quality water, so we use that first. Obviously, the Florida River has much less, so when we have to supplement that in the summer, we pump from the Animas. And then also, there are ongoing discussions about Durango as a municipality accessing water from Lake Nighthorse, and those are ongoing. No, we don't have any storage rights on the Florida and Animas, so we are very much, have to deal with the flows as they stand. But Durango does have very senior water rights. So here as a community, this is our water consumption. You see we're doing a little bit better than historic, but over the past several years, we have pretty flat consumption. So in some ways, we can applaud that because we have been seeing a growing population in our municipality, but this is certainly not keeping up with the overall trends of water availability that we're seeing. So we have some work ahead of us. If you look at a build end user consumption, this probably comes as no surprise. We see a big peak in the summer for outdoor landscaping irrigation within our municipality. Maybe some of this bump is from visitation, more people in hotel rooms and such, but from everything we can tell from the data, that's probably not the bulk of that bump. It's really just because of the irrigation use. So like many communities, we're a little unique in some sense because we have a high portion of raw water consumption in Durango. So we supply raw water to our cemetery, Fort Lewis College Landscaping, Hillcrest Golf Course, and some sports and park fields over by Riverview Olive Entry. And then for all of our build customers, those are our utility accounts, you can see that breakdown of indoor-outdoor use. I think a good rule of thumb that maybe y'all are familiar with is for any typical home, it's usually about 50-50, 50% for outdoor irrigation, landscaping use, and about 50% for your homes, obviously depending on everyone's individual, but that's what it figures out to be. So it's funny seeing all of the super high-tech AI and like satellites and all this stuff, because I did this on a spreadsheet with an intern doing a lot of manual calculations on Excel, so maybe it was something to learn, but I'm an old school engineer, not even 40, but I'm old school, I guess. So this is fascinating. I think this graph in terms of natural resource consumption is, you see this trend across energy consumption, water consumption. This could actually even be a graph of wealth distribution or income distribution. I mean, something about human societies have this exponential distribution of resources. I think that's a fascinating kind of sociological phenomena, if you will. But when it comes to water consumption, this trend continues where you have a pretty linear trend in terms of users, and then you have this exponential rise at the end of the highest users. And so what this graph is the bottom rank there is just the number. We have about 4,700 users in Durango. That number across the bottom is your rank, from lowest user to highest user. And then on the left is 1,000 gallons per year, or kgals. Obviously, in a municipal setting, we're not talking acre feet as much as we are kgals for individual users. So our median household is 58 kgals per year. Our top 5% are using about 3 times more or that. And then our top user, this is a single family home, is using 10 times that much. And so if you look at that then, where our rate price points are, our rates have not been updated in a number of years. And if you look at who is paying how much and where those breakpoints are for our tiered water rates, It's a little blended here because the rates get applied on a monthly basis, but essentially, you know, on the left side there, those people are probably using less than 3 kgals per year, or excuse me, 3 kgals per month. They are seeing that low $2.40 per kgal. A bulk of our users are really paying $3.64, which you know, one of our former utilities directors said, you get 1,000 gallons of clean, precious water for $3.64. Compare that to, I don't know, the price of gasoline or price of bottled water, where you're getting $3 will get you 12 ounces. So I think not a lot of people really think they'll talk about the price of their bill, but our bill is obviously split up into lots of different separations of that cost. And if you're looking at the consumption cost, $3.64 to get you 1,000 gallons of water. And then the breakpoints of our higher end prices are really pushed all the way to the end. So we're not really seeing a lot of only the highest users are seeing those higher rates. And even then, they're not particularly that much higher. This is a tiered system, of course. So even those highest users are getting that cheaper rate on those lower tiers of their use, and only this higher rate is kicking in once they are above a certain rate. So one of the things you could look at from a conservation perspective is where could those breakpoints be, and how could the price of water be applied on a consumption basis. Obviously, municipalities around Colorado and the nation are doing that. From a commercial perspective, the trend is even more drastic. This is obviously because commercial accounts vary so much in their use. So on the higher end, I can tell you Ska Brewing is not the highest, but they are on the higher end. But they brew a lot of beer, and I like drinking that beer, so I think it's okay that they're using some more water. But on the lower end, I mean, you could have like a law firm with a sink and a toilet, you know. So this range of users is much more drastic on the commercial account side. But a median commercial account uses 69 kgals a year. Our top 5% are using, 15 times as much as that. And then our top user is using 70 times the median. And so that, what is an equitable way to apply pricing structures to such a wide variety of commercial accounts and water use is a really challenging problem. But we don't have a particularly nuanced solution currently in Durango. It's if you use less than 300,000, you're paying that rate, and if you use more than 300,000, you're paying that rate. So I think the takeaway here is future discussions around what is a fair use of a limited resource that we are managing as a community. I think people will have maybe different political philosophies on that, but that's what community discourse is all about. Of like, this is a limited resource that we have access to. What is, what does it mean to pay your fair share, so to speak? It's not an easy question to answer, but community engagement and decisions from our elected officials will hopefully come to something that we probably none of us will like, but at least we can all agree on, right? That's kind of what the compromises are all about. And so, I think water rate review is at the top of the list in terms of things that we need to do as a community, but certainly learning from other communities, which I'm excited to hear about here, efficiency programs, things like that. Commercial, industrial, certainly focusing on that as for consumption. So thanks very much.
All right, thank you very much. Justin, if you want to come up next.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the last. These guys are on the hot seat. So I'm with Pagosa Area Water and Sanitation District, and today I want to talk to you about a little bit about our water availability, where our water comes from, including storage and the rivers we get our water from, the growth we are seeing and have been seeing, and then I'll end with with our drought management plan. And I probably have more slides than I should in this amount of time, so I'm going to blast through them pretty quick. down. So our district encompasses about 70 square miles, and we have about 6,000 connections and about 8,800 EUs. So we have a fairly large geographical area with a medium-sized group of clients, which provides us with some interesting difficulties or maybe opportunities with our water system because we have such a wide, such a large area, and that includes about 290 miles of water mains and about 300 miles of sewer, or about 100 miles of sewer. It's broken into two districts, District 1 and 2, and the pinks are what we'd call our District 1, and the purples is our District 2. District 1 includes water and wastewater, although in District 1 is just water, or District 2 is just water. And what we have in our district is we have 3 river diversions, all off the San Juan or tributaries of the San Juan. We have 7 small reservoirs and 3 distinct water treatment plants. So each one of our diversions goes to a distinct water treatment plant. And then we also have some fill stations out in our system because we have people in the county that aren't in the district but can still purchase water from us. Probably kind of hard to see that, but these are our different areas where we have. So in the top right-hand corner is our West Fork diversion, and that diverts water off the West Fork and goes to our Snowball water treatment plant. The water off that is our oldest water right, pre-compact right, so those are a pretty important water diversion for us. The top center is our what we call the 4-mile diversion, and that feeds our Hatcher plant. The water rights on that one aren't very senior, and we end up having a call on that. Typically, middle of June, we lose that water right and doesn't get turned back on until October, and so then our lakes have to take the brunt of our use, and they start to drop. Then the bottom center is our San Juan. It's off the main stem of the San Juan, about 3 miles south of Pagosa Springs, and that water goes to our San Juan plant. That water is pumped. The other 2 diversions, it's gravity fed all the way to our plants, but that one's pumped, so that San Juan plant is substantially more expensive to operate than the others because of the pumping costs of the water. So we typically only run that in the summer times when we have our peak flows. So the lakes we have are kind of daisy trained together, so we can put water in the Stevens Reservoir and open valves, and that goes down to what's called their Solenberg, what we call it around Pagosa Springs, Pagosa Reservoir, and then to Village, and then to Forest Lake. And we can actually pull water off Forest Lake as well to go to our San Juan plant if need be. So here's what we get. This is a very, our water rights menu is pretty diverse and complicated. So this is a very simplified version of that. But what we get off the West Fork is about 5 CFS, and like I said, it goes to our Snowball plant. Off the main stem, we get about 17.5. That goes to the San Juan. And then the 4-mile is 13, almost 14 CFS, which goes straight to our Hatcher. And then here's the volumes of our lakes. And I have spillway volume and usable volume. I really only care about the usable volume because that's where the straw's at to pull water out of those reservoirs is if we need them. You'll also notice on there we have a Pinion, which really is only used for raw water at the golf course, and some of our surrounding condominium communities use water and they irrigate with straight raw water from Pinion. Martinez and Dry Gulch are water rights we have for reservoirs that at this point have not been constructed. So the treatment plants, the availability we have at treatment plants is our Snowball plant. Right now, our Snowball plant, which was built in the 1980s, can only actually treat about 1.5 to 2 million gallons a day. We're in the process of building a new plant out there that should be done in December of this year, and that'll push us up to 3.5 MGD. Our Hatcher plant is a 2 million gallon a day plant, and that's expandable to 4 million if we need to do that in the future. And then our San Juan plants gets a little more complicated. If we pull water straight from the river, we can treat about 3 MGD out of that. But if we have to pull from the reservoirs, or from the reservoir itself, it's about 1 MGD because of the water quality and the difficulties in treating that. So there's our production. That's what our production was in 2024 with the 3 different plants. So you can see we're about almost 2,600 acre feet of water that was produced. And again, the graph on the bottom also shows we have similar water cells as Durango, which makes sense, where you see about 3 times as much in the summertime as in wintertime. Again, we believe that's attributed to agriculture or to irrigation more so than anything else. Here's our production and our growth. So the bottom line that's fairly flat is our actual production over the last 20 years, and you can see it's pretty flat, although our population has increased. So I think the population is doing a pretty good job of curtailing water use. Again, same thing. Water use and our e-use connections, they go hand in hand. In a nutshell, here's this. You got to take this with a grain of salt. So with our diversions, you can see in theory, we could take 27,000 acre feet. That's assuming we could take that amount of water 24/7, 365 days a year, which we can't for 2 reasons. One, we don't have the water rights to do that, and 2, the river doesn't have that much water in it. And then you can see what our treatment plant availability is, about 9,500, and then what we actually produced last year was 2,300 plus some raw water cells. So this year, almost certainly, we're going to have to go into drought management plan. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the drought management plan real quickly. And basically, we have set points that will trigger different stages for our drought plan. And really, it's set on when does our snowpack end? When do we have a call date on the 4 Mile Creek, which I'd mentioned before, and that can get us into early drought contingencies. And then we really keep an eye on that amount of water in Hatcher, since that's a major water source. And as that water level drops, it'll push us into different drought stages throughout the different times of the year. We also look at the flow of the water in the river, and then a little bit we also look at the drought stages that the state says that the county itself is in. There's our goals with our drought reduction. We're hoping to reduce flow by about 10% if we go in the voluntary drought reduction, and if we get into a stage 4, we're hoping to reduce it by 40 to 50%. And what we're really doing in our drought stages is trying to reduce irrigation, because again, that's where most of our water use is in the summertime. And secondly, we still want people to take showers and brush their teeth. We just don't mind their grass getting a little brown. And so initially, we would want people not to water in the middle of the afternoon. As the drought stages proceed down, they'll have to water every other day, maybe once a week, or maybe not water at all. We also have fines and penalties for people who don't follow the drought management plan, although our hope is that the neighbors will guilt them into following the drought management plan more so than having to try to squeeze $100 out of them. We also adjust our rates if we go into drought management stand, so we multiply the tiered rates as we get into different levels. And we also break it up a little differently between residential and commercial, simply because commercial has a little bit less availability to change their water uses than residential. And last slide, here's where we are right now. And as you can see, we're well below what we should be this time of year. We look at the San Juan Snowtail Station, and so there's probably a pretty good chance that we'll be into drought stages pretty quickly. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Brian, if you want to come up.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Peckins, Public Works Director, City of Cortez. These are what we're going to talk about this afternoon. Just a little bit on the background of the City of Cortez. McPhee Reservoir, which is fed by the Dolores River, is the source of the raw water for the City of Cortez. We provide water to the city, Montezuma County Water District Number 1, and the Ute Mountain Tribe. Population of Cortez is about 9,000 people. And, today we've heard a lot of grand ideas and grand projects, but we just kind of want to show what the city of Cortez is, we're trying to do our part as well. We've got one 10 million gallon per day capacity water treatment plant. We could never run that much water through the plant right now. It's partly a conventional treatment facility, and then we added on a membrane treatment facility part to that. We have three 2 million gallon treated water storage tanks, and then prior to the plant, we've got a 20 million gallon raw water storage reservoir. For our water distribution, we've got a 3.5 mile raw water pipeline from the canal to the water treatment plant. As of December of 2022, we have about 3,700 water meters. We've got 425,000 linear feet of water distribution pipeline, and our biggest worry is 129,000 linear feet of old cast iron pipe. Our water lines range from 4 inches to 24 inches, and certainly our 4-inch lines, especially the cast iron ones, we have issues with water pressure and being able to do fire suppression. 511 fire hydrants, and we do have automated meter reading. Some of our water challenges: maintaining and operating our 20-year-old water treatment plant that cannot produce water at its planned capacity. We're hoping to do a feasibility study either next year or the year after to see, what's the lifespan of our plant, and, we can then begin planning for a new water plant at some point. As a lot of people have talked about, aging water lines, especially the old cast iron pipes, drought preparedness, encouraging efficient water usage, and then establishing water rates that are both fair and that provide sufficient revenue to keep our system operating. Water Action Plan. The City of Cortez sent a 7-person team to the Colorado Growing Water Smart workshop in Grand Junction back in October of 2023. You can see some of the goals of the Water Action Plan. We've got a document that we're working on now. We do have an existing drought management plan and a water conservation plan, which basically both of those provide a roadmap for future water actions. To kind of expand our capabilities, there's another Growing Water Smart workshop in Montrose at the end of April. Instead of last time we did just a strictly City of Cortez team, now we're partnering with the Ute Mountain Tribe and the Dolores Watershed Collaborative. We think that'll be helpful to get more of a regional approach. We also met with the tribe a couple of months ago, and we're gonna start to meet with them on about a quarterly basis to go over joint water-related issues. This is just kind of a map of the city. The red, which we have a lot of, shows the water lines that are in poor condition. We also have issues. We have a CDOT highway running right through the middle of our city, and a break on the main water line there. We've got all kind of right-of-way utilities. It would be very difficult if we had water main leaks on our main street. Some of the things we're doing, again, we're trying to do our part. We do have bi-monthly water conservation drought management meetings with the regional community. When we went to the Growing Water Smart workshop, we partnered with Colorado State, and they're going to do something called the Polaris tool, which eventually that'll provide kind of the growth capacity of the city based on our water availability. Garden in a Box, we're gonna start that this year. We're gonna do a water audit to see how our system is functioning. We do have voluntary summer water restrictions that work out pretty well. And then last year we started a turf replacement program. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We also have a drought management plan, and we're doing some other plans. We also we put up some watershed protection signs in the Dolores River watershed. I think those are helpful as well. And then we have 4 Third Thursday events in the summer, and we do have a water conservation table booth, and we get a lot of education. We give out coloring books and that sort of thing. Drought management plan, as was mentioned previously, the goal of the plan is to facilitate appropriate responses, trigger points, depending on the drought conditions. The primary focus is on best management practices, determine water use priorities. The city manager is the designated official and can propose drought emergencies for the city. And again, we have 5 levels, including normal, alert, warning, critical, and emergency. We don't really, mandatory water use restrictions don't happen until level 4. We also have a water conservation plan that I think is due for updating in 2026. Again, the purpose is to reduce the volume of withdrawn from water supply sources, reducing the loss or waste of water, using water more efficiently, and at some point in the future, increasing the reuse of water. Our per capita water demand is relatively high. Our annual available raw water is limited, and drinking water is used for supplemental irrigation. On a good note, water plant production has decreased by 20% over the previous 5 years, so some of our conservation efforts have been fruitful. Last year, our turf replacement program, we just kicked it off in the spring of 2024. We had 21 applicants and 14 approved applicants. Again, it's on a very small scale, but it's a step in the right direction, and it resulted in a total of 17,000 square feet of non-functional residential, mostly Kentucky bluegrass turf being replaced with low-water landscaping. We're going to continue the program on into 2025. As I mentioned before, we're bringing Garden in a Box to the Western Slope communities. Again, we'll continue to do the turf replacement program as long as funding is available. Again, we're hoping to get another 10 to 15 residences to convert their Kentucky bluegrass. We just had our request for proposals for our waterline distribution master plan come in yesterday. We've got a bunch of plans going on, but this one, the bottom line is we're hoping that this will provide us a 10-year priority strategy plan for replacing our aging water lines. Priorities, project scopes, cost estimates, that sort of thing, so we can more accurately develop a plan for funding those improvements. Summary, we have a number of challenges in meeting water requirements. As has been mentioned several times, aging infrastructure is a primary concern for us. The threat of wildfires, drought, and other natural disasters is an ongoing threat, and we'd like to be more efficient in our water use. Again, I mentioned the city has a water action plan that serves as a roadmap for future measures, and a key component of that is the waterline distribution master plan that will provide a 10-year strategy for improving city infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And last but certainly not least, Marshall Brown.
Okay. What an honor to be the last speaker of the day right before happy hour. So I'll try to go quick. I will spare you all the details of Aurora's in-town system, and just suffice it to say it's large. Aurora is now about 400,000 people. Aurora Water provides water to those 400,000 people, plus probably around 200,000 additional people outside of Aurora, primarily in the southern Denver metro area. So we have opportunities and challenges. I appreciate the word opportunity was mentioned earlier. Water is limited in Colorado, but people don't seem to be. Everybody wants to come to Colorado, whether it's to live or to visit or something. So Aurora has grown our population about 25% over the last 15 or so years. That's significant growth. Aurora also has major transportation corridors that go right through the middle of Aurora, which attract a lot of activity. Fortunately for us, the elected officials, the governing body, committed to creating a sustainable water system, which is one of our, again, opportunities and challenges. So we've been trying to build a sustainable foundation to do that. So I'm going to touch on a couple of things that we've done that are not maybe as common everywhere, but are things that we've learned we've needed to do out of necessity. So this slide just summarizes the things I'll walk through. One of the early founding principles that was established back in the 50s or 60s was to have a sustainable supply. Aurora does not use much groundwater. The Denver Basin aquifer is being depleted rapidly, and portions of that aquifer are projected to be completely dry by between 2035 and 2050, which is basically tomorrow. So that's not a sustainable option for most of the Denver metro area. So Aurora had to build systems far away. Water does not originate in the Front Range. You saw a slide earlier showing the Colorado River system. The Front Range area of Colorado imports water from the Colorado River. Additionally, Aurora imports water from high up in the South Platte River and in the Arkansas River. So this map just kind of geographically, we don't have any systems down here. I had an opportunity to go on the tour of the Yampa River a decade or so ago, and I learned I was invited to primarily ensure that Aurora did not come down here to acquire water supplies, because water is limited and it's challenging. So we are present, though, in the Rocky Ford area in southeastern Colorado, again up in Park County, Lake County, so a pretty expansive raw water system. One of the first things that Aurora determined it needed to do was not just import water, use it, and let it go away. There was a drought in about the 2000 timeframe, 2002. Coming out of that, Aurora committed to 100% reuse capabilities. So all of the water that we use indoor gets recycled, we recover it, we bring it back, and we use it over and over again. Unfortunately, about half of the water does not get used indoor. In most systems in Colorado, half of that is outdoor. This system, the Prairie Waters system, Aurora has invested roughly $1 billion, which chokes me up a little bit, but we still have some debt that we're dealing with from that system. But 100% reuse capabilities. One of the other things we learned we had to do is create a demand-based connection fee. So it costs to build the system and acquire the water supply, develop and protect the water supply needed to meet demands. We don't have a very conventional connection fee in Aurora. Most systems kind of average out those costs, associate them with a meter size, and then charge you for the meter size you're going to install in the system. We don't do that. We calculate the gallon per day of water that will be used, and then we charge a connection fee for that gallon per day of water that is used. We also attribute an allocation associated with that volume. So if people exceed that allocation, they pay a capital recovery surcharge, which essentially takes their water rate, and I will show you Aurora's water rate structure. It will double or triple the water rate if people exceed the allocation. So we have water allocations in Aurora associated with a volumetric connection fee. We tried a lot of voluntary things to encourage water conservation, and found that even financially incentivized voluntary activities were not working. There is a lot of money, and water tends to flow towards money. So we have recently implemented a large water user guide. This guide looks at the non-recoverable volumes of water that would be used in our system and disallows certain types of uses in the city of Aurora. So Aurora will not see a water bottling facility show up there again. It is not allowed because the water usage is just too high. In kind of the positive space, what we're seeing with this, data centers, for example, are huge water users in most heavily populated areas. Aurora has some data centers, but in Aurora, a data center can't show up conventionally designed like it would be other places, so they have to come to Aurora with low water use footprints. So we have data centers coming now, but they don't have evaporative cooling. They have closed loop cooling or some kind of hybrid system because we don't allow those water uses, even though some of those customers have plenty of water or plenty of money to pay the fees. We had to restrict those uses even further. Here's our rate structure. I noticed earlier somebody showed a rate structure that had like tier 3 at $5.50 per gallon, per 1,000 gallons. Ours starts tier 1 at $5.63 for the single family residential customer. Our commercial, irrigation, and other customers all start higher than that. Believe it or not, my last slide I'll leave up there. Aurora is one of the more affordable rates or combined bills in the Denver metro area. So if you get up into high water use in our rate structure now, you're going to be paying about $14 per 1,000 gallons. So we have a bunch of conservation programs. I'm not going to go through all of those. I will note that our turf replacement program in the city of Aurora, that one single rebate program, we fund to the tune of about $1 million per year right now. So we're investing a lot in conservation programs. That is our most expensive program. We also, kind of speaking to the voluntary versus incentivized, a few years ago, implemented a water conservation ordinance. So we now very tightly control what new development can have in the forms of outdoor irrigation. So we only allow functional turf. You can't have Kentucky bluegrass in medians or in any non-functional areas in Aurora, only in functional spaces. Residential properties, we don't allow front lawns. We allow up to 500 square feet of turf in the backyard. So again, have had to implement some pretty strict controls on water use because of its scarcity and difficulty in the growth space. So with that, we did a survey, interestingly, on that water conservation ordinance, and most of the public feedback we received were comments like, what took you so long? Why did you not do this 20 years ago? So that was positive feedback, generally. This is more what a landscape now in the front yard looks like in Aurora. And we've had a lot of other entities reach out to see about how to create similar programs or things that create water savings. With that, I know water management plans were mentioned. Aurora also, for our water management plan, we have permanent, normal, 3-day-a-week, no irrigation during daylight hours, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., restrictions in place all the time. And then as we get more restricted in our water supply, we ratchet it down even more. So generally speaking, the community has received or adapted at least to the normal restrictions in place all the time. I won't go through this. This works kind of similarly to how the one presented a few minutes ago works, but it ramps up and restricts water use more and more. One of our more recent investments has been switching from AMR meters to AMI meters. The AMR meters can collect data remotely, but it's very limited. Ours, we were collecting data once a month. AMI meters, we can collect data every 15 minutes. So we can really provide the customers with a lot of resolution in their water use, and we're seeing some great returns on that already. So with that, I am done. I'm going to leave you with this slide maybe to look at if you're concerned about your water bill in Durango. Here are water bills in the Denver metro area for kind of an average typical property. Aurora is shown down in the yellow and red, but the blue are representative of a lot of the other combined water, wastewater, stormwater bills. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you all. I have a couple of questions for our panel before we turn it to the audience. No community operates entirely within a vacuum. How have you seen your organization work with other entities to achieve mutual benefits, and what lessons have you learned? Open to anyone.
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I mentioned earlier we have a bi-monthly water conservation meeting with other entities. We've got we're working with the tribe, and now we're going to go to the Growing Water Smart. So we're trying to expand. I mean, we don't work in a vacuum. We provide a lot of water. We treat a lot of water for the Ute Mountain Tribe, and we've got some opportunities to forge some more partnerships and work together on a regional basis rather than a citywide basis.
Yeah, I can not figure. Okay, is that on? Aurora's, almost everything Aurora does, Aurora Water is in partnership with some other water entity for all of our raw water systems. Geographical boundaries are again, interesting in a water space, but we can definitely accomplish more together and collaboratively. But it is very challenging, and almost every single one of our partnerships or solutions is controlled by an agreement, some form of an IGA or controlling document. So we have dozens of those. They all do good things, but it is a ton of work. I mentioned we provide water to 200,000 additional people in the Denver metro area. That partnership was originally brought together because of the depletion of that Denver Basin aquifer that I was talking about earlier. It was being depleted. Aurora wasn't dependent upon it, but many of our neighbors have been dependent upon that aquifer, and we're seeing wells go dry or become stressed. So we put together a partnership where our reuse system, when there's more plentiful water available, we will take the water we recapture and reuse, and we will lease it to neighboring entities so they can preserve their groundwater. So again, lots of needs, lots of opportunities. I think my personal feeling is that the only way we're going to be successful and sustainable in the future is through partnering with each other across geographical boundaries, across sectors. Aurora has a number of partnerships with agricultural operations, which is interesting that a lot of people don't know about, where we invest in continued farming operations, help create efficiencies, and then use some of that water. So again, I think that is the future of water.
We pay a lot of attention to the graphs that were just up and tell our constituents that, see, we're not at the high end. So that helps a little bit. But we also talk a lot with our surrounding agricultural partners. a lot of the ditch companies that we share water with or go back and forth with, and we have a very good working relationship with them, and they will allow us to turn water back on 4 Mile if they have the opportunity to do so. And so we work with them quite a bit because they're a large water user and they control a lot of the senior rights surrounding us.
I'm going to change tune here a little bit, and I would say we have a lot of great partnerships with environmental nonprofits and Fort Lewis College, looking at interest in analyzing the data and investigating the effects of various policies. Where I would love to see more partnership, and we do not have a very good partnership right now, is I don't really have a water counterpart at La Plata County. The city of Durango will be part of that Growing Water Smart workshop. I reached out to the county and county staff and basically got a thanks but no thanks for taking part in that planning workshop. And so I saw some of the county commissioners here earlier. I don't think they're still here. I wish they could hear that. But so far, I would say, unfortunately, our water collaboration and partnership with our county government is not as strong as I would like to see it. So I think that is an opportunity for improvement.
Thank you. One other, decisions that communities make today on density, annexation, use, and irrigation of common space really do have long-term impacts on water needs. Where do you see the nexus between land use planning and water demand planning?
This one I can jump into. Thinking about those landscape applications and also, the various equipment fixtures being installed. When you're building something, certainly landscaping, once it's there, the cost of undoing that is so high. Once you've installed a fixture, a lot of water fixtures can last at least 10 years, 15 years, maybe even more. And so the code around water efficiency, especially water efficient landscapes, I think is, I wish I had a time machine because we are now trying to undo so much which was established over decades. And so those codes are really important to capture the opportunity for water conservation at the time when you're already tearing things up and constructing, because going back and changing it after the fact is really hard and really expensive.
Yeah, we try to work with the town and county as they put together their regional plans. So we're a water district. We're not under the town or the county. So we don't, but they certainly use our input for that. And a lot with them, as we do inclusions, we have to look at that wasn't done in the past. So we have a lot of outline included properties that unfortunately use very little, well, I guess fortunately use very little water, but to get the water out there, it requires a lot of infrastructure and storage out there. And when it's not used, we then have to release that water because it becomes stale and no longer meets the Safe Drinking Water Act. So we have to be a lot more careful in the future to make sure that even if an outlying community really wants to get on a water system, there has to be a way that water can be used usefully without having to just dump it to waste it because of drinking water requirements.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add other than what I noted in the presentation. We've built a lot into codes, regulations, the planning process, and that collaboration is critical.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add either, but as I mentioned, we're working with Colorado State to develop a model that'll show us, based on our water supply, how much we can grow.
That's the Polaris, right? Yeah.
Great. Well, with that, are there any questions in the audience? Over here.
Keep in mind, happy hour is the very next thing, so don't make them too hard.
This question is for Justin. I'm Rob Hagberg from the San Juan Water Conservancy District. You showed a slide showing, that I've seen before actually, but has never been clarified, showing very little increase in production over the last several years. I'm wondering, is that just increased production, or is that actually delivery to meters and measurable delivery, or are we dealing with a substantial system leak problem?
So what we're seeing is our water sales have actually been fairly stagnant over the last 20 years, even though the population has been going up, and even our water production has been fairly flat. It's gone up a little bit, not quite as flat as sales, and a lot of that has to do with we do have a lot of water leaks that we've been repairing, but I think the majority of it is the communities come together and just has reduced their water use home by home.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right here, Charlie.
Yeah, this is a question primarily for Marshall, and you talk about basically using the water to extinction, 100% consumption of the water that are primarily coming from TMDs from the Colorado Basin, and I was interested in the complexity of that calculation and the accuracy of it to show, because lots of times over here we're thinking, oh, it's paper water, they're using it. And, I'd just like you to comment on that.
Sure, good question and good point. It is definitely a lot of complexity associated with that. So not all from the Colorado Basin. 20% of Aurora's water supply from the Colorado Basin, about 55, 60% from South Platte, and the rest from the Arkansas. Not that helps, but so when we bring it over, first you have to have the water right that's not a single-use right. So Aurora was very intentional. Some of the rights are still not able to be used to extinction. So all that water we send back to the river and let it go along its way. But every time we go through the process, the court process, we get to go show how much of the water was consumed, how much of it was not consumed, and then each of our water rights associated with the extinguishable use is only the percentage that was consumed historically. So when we go acquire large volumes of water rights, a lot of that water we're never able to take into our system in the first place. After we get it through the court process and it comes into our system, we do have a lot of tracking we have to do with how much of that is used indoor versus outdoor. We have to track it through the collection system, the water reclamation process, and then for our system, it discharges into the South Platte River. So every time it touches the river, there are losses or gains. If you're the river, you gain water. If you're Aurora, we lose water to the river every time it touches the river, and we can pull percentages back out to use it over and over again. So it's definitely not a 100% efficient system. We're actually, one of the things we're looking at and going through the pre-permitting process right now is direct potable reuse instead of indirect, which has additional complexities in the space you're questioning for how much then would we get to keep without damaging the river or the flows that were historically in the river. So that's part of what we're going through now. So I don't know if that fully answered the question, but it's definitely complex. We definitely do a ton of accounting, and there are basically cuts of the water that go to everybody wherever that water goes.
I think we have time for one more question here.
Yeah, Randy Cooper with the San Juan Water Conservancy District. I really enjoyed hearing what Cortez discussed about embracing the Polaris tool with Colorado State. I'd like to ask the other members on the panel, have they embraced the Polaris tool, and if not, why not?
I attended an online presentation of the Polaris tool, and I was super impressed. In my position, I work across all of the departments, in Durango, so from Public Works and the utility side, but also the planning and community development side. And I immediately was emailing people like, this is so cool, we need to do this. The reason that we haven't implemented yet is Durango just isn't there yet. We really are, need to go to this Growing Water Smart workshop, really map out our path to that. But as soon as we're ready and have our foundation in place to be using that tool, it looks incredible, because I think incorporating water availability, cost of maintaining our existing infrastructure, and then adding new infrastructure for development is, we have to tie that to our water availability. I mean, I can't see a future where we're not doing that. So it's an amazing tool, and I'm looking forward to the day when Durango gets to use it.
I haven't previously heard about it, so it's something it sounds interesting, something I should probably look into.
The Polaris tool is fantastic. It's relatively new. I wish the Polaris tool had been around when Aurora had to start doing those things, because we paid a lot of money to create tools that essentially do the same thing. For us, we've had an integrated planning process where we look at basically all the same factors, drivers, et cetera, to come up with an integrated water master plan, we call it. Again, my regret is that it wasn't available sooner so we could take advantage of it instead of spending literally millions of dollars to essentially process the same data and draw appropriate conclusions.
All right, well, if you'll join me in thanking our speakers.
Okay, I promise I won't hold you too long. I'm happy to have my comfort podium back. It was hard earlier to speak without it. Wow, what an incredible day. The discussions we've had from collaboration and conservation to emerging technologies and leadership, highlighting the challenges ahead, but also the innovation and commitment needed to meet them. I'm always at awe, not only with the knowledge shared during sessions, but also the conversations in the hallway. I was talking with Stacy Bowe out in the hallway, laughing about my typo in the program, and she was telling me about a friend that always puts typos in her documents because people aren't perfect. And I thought, wow, what an incredible thought and a reminder that we're all human and that's how we show up. I encourage you all to attend the happy hour hosted in the lobby by SGM and Colorado Water Trust and share with the people around you your experiences, questions, and maybe even your favorite barbecue side. I am so grateful to all of the presenters, Sky Ute Casino and Southern Ute Indian Tribe for the beautiful facility and all of the staff that helped us through the day. I want to thank the SWCD board, Steve Wolf, and Elaine Chick. We couldn't do any of this without you, and all of the other producers that helped us through the day.